In this section, we're going to walk through the installation process of getting Flutter up and running on a Windows-based machine. The first thing we're going to do is open up our browser and navigate to flutter.io. Once there, I'll find the blue Get Started button right on the center of the screen. Then I'll select Install on Windows. So there's two separate steps of installation that we're going to go through. The first thing we have to do is set up the Flutter SDK, which is going to allow us to create new Flutter applications and run them on our local machine. After we do that, we'll then do some setup for the Android emulator, which is going to allow us to run our Flutter applications directly on our machine, rather than requiring some outside separate device, although you certainly can use a separate device if you want to. I'm going to scroll down a bit and find the section marked Get the Flutter SDK. You'll see that there's a zip file right here for download, so go ahead and download this zip file. Now I've already downloaded it. I've got it over here. I'm going to drag this zip file over to some workspace directory on my machine. Now, this doesn't have to be called like literally workspace. This will be just any folder on your local machine where you usually work with code. So I'm going to move this zip file over, and then I will extract it here at this location. All right, so that'll take just a second to extract because there's quite a large number of files inside there. So while that's going, we're going to move forward. And we're going to take a look right here at the update your path variable. So at some point in the future, you and I are going to you might notice that the directions right here say, oh yeah, you could start Flutter by double-clicking Flutter console.bat. Well, we don't really want to go through that path in general. What we want to do is be able to use Flutter directly from our command line, be it the command prompt or PowerShell or git bash or whatever it is that you might use in particular. So to do so, we need to now add Flutter. So that file that we just extracted, here's the folder, it's now fully extracted right here. We need to add this thing to our path variable on our machine. And so we're going to follow these directions right here for updating your path variable. To do so, we can open up our control panel. I'll then find user accounts. I'll find user accounts again. And then on the left-hand tab over here, you'll see Change My Environment Variables. And so we're going to add an environment variable that points at this Flutter directory right here. So I'll click on Change My Environment Variables. And then on this window that pops up, I'm going to find the selection for Path right here. And we're going to try to edit that. So now in this list, I'll click on New, and we'll type out the path to this Flutter directory, or more specifically, a very special folder in this directory called the bin folder. And so the easiest way to do this is to find the bin folder inside this new Flutter directory that was just created. And then we can cut or copy this entire path right here and paste it in as a new entry for the path variable. So I've now got workspace Flutter and then specifically bin in there. So then click on OK. And OK again, and then I can close my control panel. Okay, so that's pretty much it for setup on the Flutter side of things. Now we do have to reboot Windows to actually apply this change and make that change to the path variable kick in. So at this point, I would encourage you to pause right here and restart your machine, and then join me in the next section. In the last section, we installed the Flutter SDK on our local machine. We also set up a path variable, which is going to allow us to execute Flutter from our command line, or PowerShell, or git bash, or whatever it is that you use. So hopefully you just restarted your machine. If you now open your command line back open, you should be able to execute the command Flutter, and then see a list of different commands that are available to us appear. If you see a message that says command not found or command not recognized, chances are that something went wrong while you were setting up your path variable, and so you'll want to double check how you just set up your path variable. Again, you'll want to make sure that you're pointing at your bin directory. All right, so now that we've got that done, we're going to use this new Flutter command line tool to generate a new application that we're going to be making use of in just a moment. So at my terminal, I'm again inside of a workspace directory of sorts. This does not have to be called specifically workspace. That's just the folder that I use to put all my code in on my local machine. And so anywhere on your computer that you want to put your code, you can change into that folder. And then we're going to generate a new Flutter application by running the command flutter create pix. Now Pix right here is the name of the project that we're going to create. And as you might guess, the first project we're going to work on is going to work a little bit around with pictures. So I will run that command. That will generate the project, and then it's going to automatically install some different dependencies to that project as well. So if I now list out all the files and folders inside of this directory, you'll see that there is now a Pix folder in there. If I change into that Pix folder, I can list out my files and folders again, and I'll see a couple of different files and folders. This is all the pre-generated code that comes along anytime that we create a new project. So that's it. We've got a new empty Flutter application ready to go. Now, the last thing we have to do is get an Android emulator up and running on our machine so we can actually run and test out this application. So that's going to be the last step that we have to go through. In this section, we're going to, one last thing here, we're going to start downloading the Android Studio, which is what we're going to use to set up our Android emulator. And then as soon as we start the download, it's going to take a couple of minutes to download. So I'll let you kind of start it up and then we'll take a break into the next section. So again, at flutter.io, I'm going to find the section marked install Android Studio right here. And then we are prompted to download and install the Android Studio. And so you can follow that link. And right here, right in the center of the screen, we're looking for download Android Studio. So go ahead and go through that process, download that file, and then I'll catch you in the next section.